Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I am talking about comedic memoirs that made me laugh. So I like a laugh. I'm actually quite a cheap laugh when it comes down to it. I really enjoy watching comedy panel shows. I like watching Taskmaster, 8 out of 10 Cats Does Countdown. I mean, Only Connect technically isn't a comedy panel show, but it's hosted by Victoria Coren Mitchell and she's hilarious. I just love a comedian. I love watching live stand-up. Most of the TikToks that I watch is American stand-up or British stand-up that somehow managed to break through to TikTok. Love that for me. A lot of the YouTubers that I watched, like the OG ones, started off as comedians. I love that. And I just think there is something incredibly powerful about making someone laugh from something you created. I love that. So I have a lot of respect for comedians. I've seen some comedians live. I've met some comedians. I've been embarrassed by Jimmy Carr twice. That was fun. So we love a comedian, was the TLDR of that. And it also means that when it comes to my reading, sometimes if I have to read a memoir or if I really appreciate a particular comedian, I will read their memoir. Now there are loads, and I know that a few of the ones that are in my list are quite old because I haven't read any memoirs in a while, but I did want to recommend the ones that made me laugh and then maybe add a couple onto the list that are on my radar that I'm really excited to read. We'll start with the first ever comedian memoir I ever read, which is Russell Brand's My Bookie work. Russell Brand is obviously known for his whimsical, overly sexualized, drug-induced comedy. He is very, very intelligent. Regardless of whether you think he's spouting absolute bollocks or not, he's a very, very intelligent comedian. And what I really appreciated about his memoir is it shows where that intelligence comes from. It shows where he learns the power of using large vocabulary and outsmarting people, because he was never going to outfight them. He was never going to win any other way. So using his wits and his mind is how he did that. But the problem with using and having a powerful mind is that sometimes escapism is a desperate need, and it does look at like the darker elements of his life. It does look at his childhood and his history and trauma and shit like that, but it does have some genuine moments of levity, and you can see very clearly in this book why he is such a clever comedian. And I feel like if you're like, Hannah, you've started on a rocky start, he is rather problematic. Yeah, he is. He is a problematic comedian. That was kind of the whole point. I know that he's mellowed out massively since he married and had children. Great, but I genuinely think that he is still one of the funniest people on the planet because he is also one of the smartest. So I really, really enjoyed this, and I would definitely recommend it. One of the ones that I listened to as an audiobook rather than read was Tom Allen's is actually not very nice. This is not necessarily like a straight memoir in that he discusses incidents that he's come across and how he's not a particularly nice person. It started off as a Radio 4 show, and I believe it's being printed as a book. It's certainly out as an audiobook. Tom Allen, again, is a very, very intelligent young man. He's originally from Essex. I love there is banter between him and Rob Beckett because they both went to the same school but had very different experiences at this school. But I just think there is something he's got a very dry sense of humour. It's very quick-witted. It does rely on stereotypes we make about the LGBTQ, and that's why it's very, very insightful. It's just very clever. And what I like about this is it kind of reveals that we all have our little ways of escaping social awkwardness that seems polite but actually is incredibly rude, and there are moments when we want to say things that we shouldn't say for obvious social reasons. So I reviewed this originally for NetGalley. I really enjoyed it and I love Tom Allen's voice. So if he were to release, I'm gonna have a look. I don't think he has released any other like straight memoirs or books or anything like that, but he's definitely one that if he did, I would pick it up straight away. I just find him really funny. He's a really funny guy. The next one I want to recommend is Spectacles by Sue Perkins. Now, this is not necessarily the funniest on the list. Sue Perkins is amazing. You'll probably recognise her from Great British Bake Off. She also did skit shows with Mel, because it was always Sue and Mel. She's very, very, very clever. But what I like about this is, again, much like with Bookie Work, it goes through her entire life. It looks at her experiences, not necessarily just good ones. It does have some quite low moments. If I've learned anything from reading comedian memoirs, is that they are all troubled in some way, and it's really, really interesting to see from a female comedian's perspective, especially someone who came up in the 80s and 90s. So it's not exactly an easy time for comedians in general, but also for female comedians, female LGBTQ comedians even more so. So it's a really interesting, insightful memoir, but also genuinely has some funny moments, because I just find her sense of humour very clever. And like, what makes her such a great presenter is the fact that she's reactive. I always notice when watching like Great British Bake Off or anything like that she presents, she's very, very good at bouncing to and fro, not just with Mel, but with the other contestants as well. And I think you need that. For a comedy duo, there needs to be that to and fro. She's not always the straight man either. There is a kind of, between her and Mel, there is always that kind of like, she can be silly, but she will react depending on, she's definitely like a comedian. A chameleon comedian is what I'm trying to say. She can kind of switch between whatever role she needs to do, and it's clear in her writing that she has a lot more behind that persona going on. That again, yeah, a really insightful and fun read. It genuinely made me laugh. Next, I want to talk about Ayoade on Ayoade. Richard Ayoade is known for being the original James Acaster, the genuinely socially awkward, very intelligent, very weird comedian. He originally directed some really fantastic cinema. And I don't know if he was a director before he was a comedian or if it was just at the same time, but regardless, I can't remember because it's been so long since I've read this one. This is another one where like I'm having to hark back to memory to remembering. What I really liked about Ayoade on Ayoade is it's written like a script. He's talking to you directly, there are stage directions. It's very much a cinematic experience, considering it's called The Cinematic Odyssey. But it is still talking about his life, it is still talking about his experience, it's talking about his life as a director, as a comedian, as a dad, as a son, like all these different elements of who he is and what makes him such a good comedian. But what I liked about this is just the structural difference. A lot of the memoirs that I'm talking about today are very kind of like chapter by chapter, acknowledgements of life, talking about this, whereas this, because of the change of structure, just added something else. And again, it just lends into the fact that he's a little bit kooky, he's a little bit weird, and it's just really fun. It's really fun. This was one of the first ones that I genuinely guffawed at, like some of the stuff, because he's bantering with you directly as an audience, and that's a really hard thing to do when you can't see your audience. She says, talking to a camera in her room by herself, like it's not easy to do. So the fact that he does it, he has such a mastery over that. I loved it. I thought it was great. Another one that's technically not a memoir, but it has memoir moments in it, is Sandy Toksvig's Almanac. Now, I have mentioned this in a couple of videos before. I am obsessed. This essentially, an almanac is a calendar of the year, but it talks about historical moments that happened on those dates. And what I love about this is Toksvig takes famous and infamous women from history, or women that have completely been forgotten from history, and uses the almanac to show you who those women were and what they achieved, especially in considerations when they've been neglected because men did something at the same time and the men got the credit for it and the women didn't. Now, it does have memoir type moments in it. Sandy does talk about her past in relation to some of these women, and especially in the acknowledgements she discusses and the introduction she discusses her experiences and who she is and why she felt the need to write this book. So if you don't necessarily like a straight memoir, or you prefer a shorter structure so that you can burn through it quicker, I would definitely recommend this. Plus, it's just a really pretty hardback. I would also recommend the audiobook because Toksvig narrates it herself. So again, it just has that bouncy levity that you can expect from Sandy Toksvig. Again, a very, very intelligent comedian. And maybe that's why I like comedy so much, is it's for smart people by smart people. And she is definitely a very, very smart lady. So I really, really appreciated this, and I would definitely recommend this one. Next, I want to talk about Jonathan Van Ness's Over the Top. Now, I guess you could argue that Jonathan Van Ness is not a straight comedian, obviously not, but not like a comedian in the strictest sense. They have those comedian tendencies on Queer Eye, like I know they've done like their own podcasts and things like that, which are fantastic. And what I really, really liked about this, not only is that Jonathan Van Ness narrates it themselves, but also that it has the levity and up moments of referencing Anastasia, the Fox animation, which I love, but also talking about his history, his traumas, and his life and his relationship with his mum, which I think is really important to him. So I really, really liked this. What I also really liked about this is the fact that there is a lot of LGBTQ rep in it. It does talk about experiences as a whole, which is really insightful, but it doesn't ever claim to be the sole story on it, which I think is really important, and I'm probably preaching to the converted here, so I'm sorry if that seems really obvious. I just felt like it needed saying. It's really, really funny. It has his voice in it, whether you listen to it as an audiobook or read the book, and yeah, I would absolutely recommend this one. It's not particularly long either, so if you want just a short, quick read, and just a little burst of humour, I would absolutely recommend it. Next, I want to talk about Elisascherzinger. Now, Elisascherzinger is one of my favourite comedians because she really perfectly balances feminist opinions with genuinely thoughtful, funny content. And I think sometimes people can be like, oh, if you're a feminist, then you must just be a man-hating bitch. She's absolutely not. Her comedy is for everybody, and I just think it's great. It's not for everybody. I appreciate that, you know, taste is what I'm looking for. Taste is subjective. I appreciate that. But for me, if I was to write comedy, I would want it to sound like Scherzinger's, because she talks about dating, she talks about her married life, she talks about just general patriarchy things, she talks about television. It's such a wide variety of things. She just seems really fun, and her bio is exactly the same. It has all those elements. She is often assumed to be the dumb blonde, and she will lean into it and make you look like an idiot, which I really appreciate. She's just fucking funny. She's so fucking funny. To be honest, I think you should just go and watch all of her Netflix specials. Just quit watching this video now, log into Netflix, watch all her specials, and then you'll understand. David Mitchell's Thinking About It Only Makes It Worse, again, technically isn't really a memoir. It's more just a case of him looking at certain experiences and his anxiety and social awkwardness and things like that. David Mitchell, again, is a very intelligent, great panellist, great comedian. I haven't actually seen any of his stand-up. I've only ever watched him on panel shows. And again, much like with Sue Perkins, he has that ability to banter across people, which I really appreciate. He has a very, very dry sense of humour. I know that in his memoir he talks about how he met his wife, and again, he's such a socially awkward little baby boy, and I just want to protect him. He's just so cute. So this made me laugh, but for like different reasons to the others, because whilst with the others I felt like I was in on the in-joke, he makes himself the butt of every joke, which I appreciate. We can enjoy some self-deprecating humour, that's fine. So again, really enjoyed that. Again, the audiobook is narrated by him, and it's a laugh. So there we go. That is my list of comedian memoirs that genuinely made me laugh. As for ones that are on my radar, I really want to read Trevor Noah's Spawn a Crime. I don't know if that's going to make me laugh or just be really sad, but I've heard really good things. I also want to read Ali Wong's Dear Girls. Again, I don't know if that's a memoir or if it's just like a self-help book, but written by Ali Wong. She's hilarious. Her Netflix specials are also really fucking funny. And the other ones that I want to read, there's Ramesh Ranganathan's Straight Out of Compton that I really want to read. I think Katherine Ryan has just released one as well, which I really want to read. Katherine Ryan is incredible. If Katherine Ryan and Elisascherzinger could just come and have dinner at my house and just entertain me all evening, I'd fucking love that. So yeah, in the comments down below, let me know what comedic memoirs made you laugh, or which are your favourite comedians, or are you going to check out any of these comedic memoirs now that I've told you how amazing they are. Check out all my socials down below. Don't forget that you can support me through Waypoint Books and any of those links down below. And other than that, have a nice day.